Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Today we are gonna discuss the nuclei of the spinal cord and the architectural classification or cellular laminae of the spinal cord. You know them, they are also called as Rexed laminae. Now before going to the detail, you have to look into the cut section of the spinal cord, in which you can see the outer white matter is there and the H-shaped structure or butterfly shaped structure is the gray matter, and the blue arrow is pointing towards the ventral horn or anterior gray column of the gray matter of the spinal cord, and the purple arrow is touching the posterior horn or dorsal gray column, you would say, and you are looking also into a pink arrow that is pointing towards the lateral horn. And you know this lateral horn is present from T1 to L2 spinal segment, where it has to give rise to the sympathetic fibers. It's preganglionic one, and you remember that it is also called as thoracolumbar outflow, and this is also a little inconspicuous column present in your sacral region from S2 to S4 segment that has to give rise to parasympathetic preganglionic fibers for pelvic organs, and they are a part of craniosacral outflow, the sacral portion preferably. And now we have to concentrate on some other diagram. Now look into the picture in which you are looking the gray column or this gray matter of the spinal cord, and on the left side of the screen you can see that there are various markings and various colored nuclei. Let's discuss them first. First, concentrate on the anterior horn, which are being marked by the two black lines, and this is now being divided into medial most area, the intermediate or central area showing the central group of nuclei, you would say, and then the lateral area or lateral group. So concentrate on the medial most area, in which you find that it is again showing the two set of nuclei, the ventromedial and the dorsomedial nuclei, and the central group addresses ventrally the accessory nucleus, and just posterior to it you can see the Pharynic nucleus. The accessory nucleus, if you can recall that what it has to do, the central group where I mentioned accessory nucleus and Pharynic. The accessory nucleus is basically the nucleus of the spinal root of accessory nerve, the 11th cranial nerve up to the C5 spinal segment. It is present, and then you can see the Pharynic nerve nucleus where it is present. It is present from C3 to C7 you can quote, and you observe this central group only in the upper cervical segments. So now concentrate that the lateral group is showing the ventrolateral nucleus, the dorsolateral nucleus, and the retrodorsolateral nucleus. They can be named as anterolateral, posterolateral, and the third one is posterolateral. So why these are divided into three parts? So let me discuss the anterolateral or ventrolateral nucleus. Let me enlarge a little bit. It has to supply the proximal muscles of your body, and if you can mention that your shoulder and arm and the gluteal area and the thigh, ventrolateral nucleus is going to address them. Now what about the dorsolateral nucleus? It basically supplies the intermediate group of area of the muscles of your limb, like forearm and the leg of the body. Now concentrate on the retrodorsolateral nuclei. What they are gonna do, this area has to innervate your distal segment of the body, like extremities, your hand and the foot. Now again for that medial group you expect them are present throughout your whole extent or entire extent of the spinal cord. And what they are gonna do, they have to innervate the center of the body muscle, or they can be called as axial muscle of your body, either skeletal or visceral muscle. So now after that, concentrate on this nuclei in the lateral horn. Here they are labeled as, let me make it a little bit more clear, that this lateral horn is showing the intermediolateral and the intermedio-medial nuclei. Now, what they are supposed to do, the intermediolateral one basically is showing the interneuron or internuncial neuronal column. What I mean, I will show you another diagram to show that how interneuron are connecting in between the group of neurons. And what about the intermedio-medial group? We have mentioned already that they act both as a nuclear column consisting of afferent and efferent fibers, and you find them as sympathetic and parasympathetic outflow, which you find in T1 to L2 as sympathetic fibers, and at S2 to S4 as the parasympathetic fibers. Now this dorsal gray column or dorsal horn is showing the four, you would say, afferent nuclei here. The most superficial, or on the outer side, you would say, that forms like a cap over it, is the posterior marginal nuclei, and this nucleus is forming a thin layer as a cap and has to receive the afferent or incoming dorsal root fibers. Next to it, the gray color is marked, which is called as Substantia Gelatinosa. It is basically present at the tip of your this dorsal horn and present throughout the whole extent of your spinal cord. And what it has to do, it is acting as a relay station for the pain, touch, and temperature fibers, and also concerned with the sensory associative mechanism. What it means, that we usually group information together. Why? And they all are must required to be associated with that of one memory, and we experience usually by reinforcing all these information, or they each other add to our group of information together. So this substantia gelatinosa has to do all this function. Then the purple color larger size is nucleus proprius, and just lies adjacent to this gelatinosa, and again present throughout the entire extent of the spinal cord. And what it has to do, it also act as a relay area for the mechanical and temperature sensation to the brain. And just now concentrate on a small purple nucleus, which is labeled as on the top of the pink line, that is the dorsal nucleus. You call it as nucleus dorsalis or thoracic nucleus, or also called as Clark's column. It is present where? It is present on the medial most area of the base of posterior horn, and extent is from CA to L3 spinal segment. It also acts as a relay column for various reflex or basically unconscious proprioceptive information or impulses, and takes all this to your cerebellum, and its axon may give rise to the posterior spinocerebellar tract. Now we will be looking to the same picture, but on the right side of the screen, which are showing various Rexed Laminae. Now we are supposed to discuss the architectural classification of the spinal cord. Before this, we have to just know that these laminae are 10 in number and being marked with the Roman words lamina 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and the central one is 10. So let's start with the lamina 1, which is present just at or near the tip of the dorsal horn and very similar to the marginal zone and occupies that very you would say area which is postro-marginal nucleus location of the left side. So marking R of that lamina 1. Now lamina 2 is showing the area which corresponds to substantia gelatinosa, and what they do, they definitely has to deal with the sensation of the noxious and non-noxious stimuli, and they can alter or modulate the sensory input towards your brain and the incoming the signals that are being perceived as painful or not painful. So dealing with the sensory information of pain, touch and temperature, and sends info to lamina 3 and 4, you would say. Now concentrate on the lamina 3. This is similar or corresponds to the nucleus proprius, and it is involved in the proprioception and sensation of light touch, and its cells are in contact with the cells in layers of lamina 4, 5 and 6 also. Now concentrate on the lamina 4 that also is involved in non-noxious sensory information, relay it and deals the processing of this, and also again this corresponds to the nucleus proprius area, and they also make contact with that of the lamina dis 2 and the consecutive coming lamina. Now concentrate on the lamina 5, you would say. Lamina 5 has to relay sensory including like nociceptive information, which are basically a painful one, and take these information to your brain via opposite or contralateral, you would say, side of the body, and the spinothalamic tracts, which are ascending one, and receives descending information from the brain via the corticospinal and rubrospinal tract. And these area are corresponding to the base of the dorsal column, you would mention along with the lamina 6. Now lamina 6 is what it has to do. They contain small interneurons and are involved in the spinal reflexes. They again receive sensory info from the proprioception or from the muscle spindle, and they have to send information to the brain via same or ipsilateral spinocerebellar tract. Now concentrate on the lamina 7, which you see is a large heterogeneous zone. It has to receive info from the lamina 2 to 6 and from various internal organ viscera. It has to relay motor information to the viscera, and it is also you can say is a part of dorsal nucleus of Clark's column. I mentioned earlier the name of that nucleus. Now you have to see the lamina 8, and its size, you would say, vary according to the spinal cord level, but is more prominent or most prominent in the cervical and the lumbar enlargement, and its cells are involved in the modulatory information of the motor output to your skeletal muscle, and is basically lying or corresponds to the medial aspect of your ventral horn. And now what about the lamina 9? It corresponds to the lateral group of nuclei of the ventral horn, and it fibers or axons of these neurons, they have to supply the skeletal muscles or striated muscles of your limb. Now you have to concentrate on the lamina 10th you would say, that is around the central canal. And what this lamina is supposed to do, it is forming basically that gray commissure, and the axons here are decussating or crossover from one side of the spinal cord to the other side. So having the neuroglia and decussating axons and neurons, and they also have the in such a way properties of the interneurons with them. So if I have to summarize again all these lamina, so what I have to say, that lamina 1 to lamina 4, they are concerned with interpreting and relaying sensory information like exterioception, sensation. And the lamina now, this 5 to 6, they have to handle the proprioceptive sensation and act as a relay between the periphery to the midbrain and the cerebellum, and taking information from the muscle spindle. Now what next? The lamina 7 to 9, they form final motor pathway to initiate and modulate the motor activity, because they are supposed to supply the skeletal muscle. In the last lamina, which was the 10th lamina, has decussating fibers, and they have to move data in between the left and right side of your spinal cord, and they also contain the neuroglia. So if again we have to sum up, we can say that the dorsal horn is dealing with the sensory information, the ventral horn is dealing with the motor information, and the lateral horn is dealing the information of this autonomic nervous system basically, and are having the internucleal neuronal column with them. There is another good picture that is showing the various fibers in this lamination classification, that you can see that the divisions of various fibers. The median division is showing the proprioception, and they carry the fibers. Then in addition to these alpha fibers, they are also carrying information like touch. Number 2, A beta fibers you would say. Then you have to concentrate that there is a lateral division that is supposed to carry the sharp pain or very precise pain, and information are being carried through 3A delta fibers, and cold is supposed to be passed through this. This sensation has to pass through it. And then there is a dull pain sensation as warmth is supposed to pass through this 4C fibers. So the name of the lamina is mentioned in this diagram along with the name of the fibers and the name of the sensation they are taking. And then the lamina 8 to 9, they are contributing to various reflexes, and the 10th one you already know has to deal with the decussation and crossing over fibers. Yeah, in this diagram you can see that afferent neuron, this is spinal nerve, is basically drawn here. The afferent neuron, after passing through dorsal root ganglion, is entering into the dorsal horn, and then there is an interneuron in between, and then comes the efferent neuron. So now you get the concept of that internucleal neuronal column or interneuron word which I mentioned earlier. Thank you very much.